So this is the lawn tractor automation group. If you look down below in the description under the YouTube video, we've got various links you can dig through, and there's a one link is for the index of all of these videos we've done for the last 3 years. I think I just looked at it was like 3 years we've been doing this, and then I've got another index of the ROS agriculture, which was another 3 years before that. So those are in the links down below if you're interested in seeing what we do and don't want to have to sit through a whole video to see if we say anything important. So hopefully the index will clear up some of that. So last week I was saying I was going to put my laptop on this robot back here and take it out and drive it around the block and collect all the sensors. Because if I fire up ROS bag record all, any message that goes by gets stored, and then I can go back and play those back later with plot juggler or whatever. So I can get both GPSs, I can get the wheel encoders on the back, and when I get done playing around right now, I can get the new wheel encoders that I put on the back, and I can get the steering feedback, and I can get there's various things that are being published, and whatever goes by, I can put that in a bag file and look at it later. But I found out when I went to do this that I'd swapped out the hard drive in that laptop, so that the old hard drive was plugged in as an external drive. And so what I decided was, well, I could either copy the files from the external drive to the internal drive, but that's a jump of 2 versions of Linux and 3 versions of ROS. So I didn't know how much problem that was going to be. Another option would be just open the laptop and swap the drives back and go ahead and run my tests and then swap them back again. But that gets old real quick doing that. So I went ahead and copied the files and got them to the point where the cat can make went through without any major problems. And when I tried to start the launch file, all my Python programs are complaining, mainly because in the versions, Python switched from Python 2 to Python 3. So I had to go through each one and change the header at the top that says Python. I had changed it to Python 3. I got rid of those. And then it was complaining about indentation. You're mixing spaces and tabs. And, these files are years old, so I don't know why it didn't complain up until now. And unless, again, Python 3 is just checking harder. And the other thing I worry about is, does it only check for that kind of stuff if it's executing those lines of code? And if that's the case, then you're going to be out driving around and things are going to crash on you and say, oh, you need to fix your code here. And so that will be a problem. I remember back in the old days when I was using Windows 95 and Visual Basic 3.0 or whatever it was on big robots, and they'd be driving around, and I noticed, hey, my robot's not responding. I look down at the screen, it says, oh, you got a type mismatch on line 532 of your program. Like, oh man. So that way it would just crash completely, and it's running wild now. So I try to be aware of those kind of things. But so anyway, that was the point. I was going to go get the code and get the code updated and then put it on the robot and go out and drive it around. So that way I can get the new encoders and compare it to the old encoders. And then I've got all the GPS stuff too at that point that I can look back at. And I got to the point where I cleared up all the errors till I was down to the point saying, I can't find this serial port and that node would die. I can't find this serial port and that node would die. And that's because I didn't have it plugged into the robot. So there was nothing plugged into serial ports. So I thought, I just got to go out and do that. So last night about 10 o'clock, I thought, I got to get something done. So I copied the UDEV rules from the old drive to the new drive. And I'm thinking all I had to do was carry it down and plug it in and see if it works. And I was too lazy to do that. I got this morning and thought, well, I could do that, but I was too lazy to do that. So that's where I'm at right now. If I, like this afternoon, I could go out and put this on or just go down. Right now it's parked inside of my house. So I can just plug the computer in and fire it up and say what's complaining and see what's publishing. And if everything's publishing, I have to write an extra node to read my new processor board. It's got one of these little processor boards on it, and it hooked up to the new encoders. So I just have to have something that reads that and publishes that as a odometry topic. At which point, then I can take it out and drive it around. And I'm just driving by remote control right now. But still, that's where that whole project sits. What was the next thing? So along those lines, I was also thinking, well, is it better just put bolt a Raspberry Pi into this box right there? Some of there's already holes in there where I had one bolted in once before. And I could put a Raspberry Pi that's mainly there just to interface to all the fun stuff that's there, like all the sensors and like the board that runs the motors and all that stuff. So I, without putting a full laptop on there, I could just bolt a Raspberry Pi in. And if I'm really clever, I could have it so when I turn on the main power switch, the thing boots up, starts up ROS, and everything's ready to go. And then when I go to shut it down, I was trying to think of, I've been through all this before, thinking, could I just put a push button that says shut down, or can I just have, some other way to do that? Because otherwise, your alternative is you have to log into the Raspberry Pi either with like secure shell or remote desktop or something, and then you get, so you could have a laptop that's connected to the robot, and then you say start up the stuff, and when you're done, going to say shut down the stuff. So that was another thing. I gave that some thought, but didn't get too far on it. So I did find I have a whole box of Raspberry Pis. I didn't know I had quite so many. I got two of the original 1Bs. I've got the 1B plus, which where they changed the form factor, the modern one, and then I've got three of the three of the Pi 2s and three of the Pi 3s, and I've got a Pi 4. So I've got all that stuff laying around that I'm not doing anything with. So it would be easy enough to bolt one inside of my robot and fire it up and start using it. So that's something else that may or may not happen one of these days. And it comes back to the issue of the whole reason for worrying about how to shut this thing down is if you start up a ROS bag record and it starts creating a log file, if you shut it down in a way that it doesn't like the file that gives you back says, oh, this file is corrupt. It's not, something's not correct about it. Now, some of the time, maybe all of the time, if you run ROS bag record fix on that file, it will fix the file and you can recover it. But I know as soon as I start assuming that's going to work every time, it's not going to. So I'm going to go out and drive around for an hour and come back and find out that file's gone. I can't get it back. So that was just something I was trying to figure out. There are ways that lots of people document on your Raspberry Pi. You can put a push button on some GPIO pins, and if you push the button, that signal, you have like a Python script watching that. So when you push the button, it says, well, I got a shutdown request, and then it can execute a what's it called, ROS? No, not ROS. Linux shutdown now or whatever that command's called. And so just by physically pushing a button, it will kill Linux, which is Linux is going down. It tells ROS to shut down. So I don't remember if that fixes my problems or not. If it does, that might be that'd be a quick way to get around that. So that's kind of where I'm at on that kind of stuff. And other than that, I look at my table and I have any extra toys laying here. So that's, I guess, all I have to say for this week. So we'll turn it over to Al.
Just on that shutdown process, I don't know if I can get to it very quickly. Let's see, where would that be? In my GUI that, again, I'm using a laptop similar to you, and I start my stuff with a button that I press. It happens to be on the screen, and then I stop my stuff with a button that I press. And I don't remember exactly all what it does, but it kills some processes specifically for ROS, as well as, and again, as you said, the goal is to get a clean shutdown so that you save that ROS bag file.
So when you do that, does your laptop stay connected to your lawn tractor the entire time, or do you start it up and then drive away, and then when you come back, you have to reconnect?
It stays connected to the laptop, because if I lose the serial connection between my laptop and the board that controls the steering, and um, it'll send a kill switch. It'll send a kill command. Let's see if I can find it.
Well, that's the other side of the equation. I'm just wondering about your remote laptop that's got your like remote desktop. I assume you're going over Wi-Fi to talk to the one on the lawn tractor. My problem is if I take that approach and I say take my laptop outside or sit in my living room and say start up these launch files and with my robot sitting outside, and then if I go drive around the block, I lose connection between those two. And when you come back, you can't go into that command line and do a control C because you've lost that window. And the only way I didn't do it is then do a kill function. So you have to figure out what the PID of, say, that launch file is, or your ROS bag. And then once you find out the PID, you can say kill that PID number, and that'll shut it down. And that's just more screwing around than I wanted to do. So that's why I was wondering if, if you can just pull up a new terminal window that's not connected to anything and just say, do the Linux shutdown now command, whatever that's called. It could be if you take down Linux, then that takes down ROS at the same time, which hopefully would take down the ROS bag file. So that's I'm just trying to work through that and trying to get it as painless as possible.
Yeah, I haven't ever heard about or tried to use that Linux thing. I go through some rigmarole of trying to find the PIDs of the ROS stuff because, again, I'm trying to keep this board, which is connected to all the sensors. I want to make sure that I can talk between these two through the serial port. And if I lose that, so if this connection were to drop, either because this laptop, I mean, the common example is if this laptop's battery stops, this connection is going to die. This is going to pick that up and it's going to say, oh, shut down. Something's not right. But let's see, do I have a link here to the startup code? Where is that? Where would that be? Where would that be? I guess I can connect to the tractor. If I go to it's not going to be in there. Bear with me. I just wanted to remind myself, what do I put in this? What do I actually do when I stop it? So if I press that stop button, so then it finds yeah. I'm not remembering. It's what does this do? I'm forgetting what this does. Anyway, this is the routine that it runs when but I thought there was some other.
Oh, right down below it says closing the ROS bag window, and there you're doing a kill -9 on the PID. So that looks like the one that kills the logging file.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just a little bit of, and then it does the unregister. So it's trying to clean it up, trying to make a and then there's more. The first thing it does is starts to capture that ROS bag file, and then it goes through a process of trying to clean it up because I want to be able to restart. I want to press, go again without it failing. And I found that if I don't go through these various kill each of the launch files that I had started, I had a problem. And then I did a little debugging. Because it never always works, try to capture what processes were running before and after in case I have to go back and debug, well, what didn't it kill? And anyway, that's still in there. Because this is where after I've stopped the launch files, I'm trying to get all of the ROS stuff out of the system. So far, I haven't had that really annoying experience in a while where I run along series and have a bag file running and haven't been able to get back to it. So it's working for me at the moment.
And the other thing I had thought of, if I just put a toggle switch somewhere on my system, whether it's on the side of my plastic box or on my control panel, just have something watching that switch, and it knows if I turn the switch on or turn the switch off. So if I turn the switch on, I can send a signal back to my ROS computer saying, start the launch file to run the logger. So that'll start the logger. And at some point I can just flip the switch off, and that'll send a signal, and I'll say, oh, do a kill on the ROS bag and shut that down. So theoretically, I can just, turn the switch on, log file, turn it off, and then drive somewhere else, turn it back on. So I can control the logging independently without having to get, without having to go to a command line at all. But I'm gonna have to think about that real hard to figure out what steps I need to make it do that. And then also, if you go to that trouble, that if it starts up the logger file, if you have an LED somewhere that lights up and says logging is active, and you flip the switch off, then that LED should go off too. So that's just some more things I had thought about on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you switch to a RPi, I, I wouldn't mind having a Raspberry Pi here now, but simply because of the power issues and space issues. So far, I've been able to make the laptop work, but it is certainly cumbersome to have. Well, it gives you some things, but it also can be a pain in the butt. And then I've got this GUI that's helps me start and stop it. So I'd have to, as you said, figure out some other way to do that.
What the way yours is set up right now, you're saying you had to kill all these different launch files. Can you just go in and say kill the logging file and then start the logging file again, or does it have to do a bunch of other, ROS startup and shut down type things?
For me personally, although it's not programmed like this, for me personally, I believe, yes, you can just stop the bag file recording and restart the bag file recording without, trying to kill the master and clean up, all the other things that might be running with the master. I have done that. I haven't since I've got this GUI working, but I have done that in the past.
Yeah, I was assuming that should be possible, but you were saying something about you had to shut a bunch of their stuff down to get it to start cleanly again. So I didn't know if there's something else, if you had to do extra stuff there to make that work.
No, for me, it mostly revolves around pushing that series of waypoints into, I'm not going to use the right language, but taking those waypoints and sending those to the Lyrics Pure Pursuit deal. I have just historically tried to start that clean, and because of that, I want to restart the master and have everything clean. So I'm no doubt there's a way that you can interrupt it and restart it in the middle, but I haven't ever tried to work through all the idiosyncrasies of that. Because there's always something for me, like these darn, these left and right wheel deals that I've got going on have sort of been a nagging issue, and the IMU heading, that was a nagging issue. So anyway, yeah, I'm not I'm not resilient as being able to start and stop just in the middle of anything and anywhere. But if you can get to that, I think that's a good saying. Start and stop in the middle of anything and anywhere. Um, that is not where I'm at. Getting closer, but
So speaking of wheel encoders, I think you were saying last week that one of your wheel encoders had died on you. Did you get that figured out? And do you know what the problem was?
I don't know what the problem is, but it didn't. This left speed wheel encoder that runs on the Teensy, um, both of these use I2C to talk to between the encoder and the board, and I was getting an I2C error on this one. And through a series of restarting it, both software wise, restarting the USB, turning the power off on the USB, turning it back on, and pressing the reset button on the Teensy, it came back up. But I don't, it's a little bit of a phantom message that has appeared in 6 months, maybe has appeared 3 times.
I just wonder if your mice were chewing through the wires again or something is what your problem was. But
Yeah, it could be, but yeah, it physically is running again. So I don't know if there's a physical connection issue or not. Moisture could be the issue. Anyway, so on my side of the house, last time we spoke, I had run a test, and the terrain that I happen to be running on varies from flat to let's just say a 15-degree angle. There's only one part where the hill is, pretty significant. It's not a lot because it's not a big yard. It's like it would be 2 or 3 swipes of a 42-inch tractor, but it is enough that I wanted to try to clean that up. I implemented my own approach to trying to adjust the steering on the side of a hill, and we were brainstorming around Ag Open GPS and how they might do that. So I went out here to Ag Open GPS, downloaded all the files, and I make it sound like this was quick. It didn't go quick for me to figuring out how best to do this, but ultimately I unzipped them, downloaded all of them. This happens to be a screenshot of VS Code. It has a global search function. Started plucking around looking for terms like IMU and other terms, and it does a fantastic job of giving you all of that. However, there's just a ton of files in this, and so I wrote a little script to pull out just the .cs files, thinking that was where the code would be, and then came across 2 files. This AB line, I think for some reason he starts a lot of his with C, must stand for something, but this AB line CS file and this guidance file. This has a function. The guidance file has a do steer angle calc, and the other one, let's see, where was the oh, here it is. He has an if else statement in here about apparently using the Stanley method for calculating the steer angle or the pure pursuit. And so in both of these there's a statement in here about adjusting the IMU. Oh, see, I had this laid out nicely. Here he's still calculating. And let me go back to this one for a second. So this appeared to me to be the line in the Stanley approach where he's in this function called do steer angle. He does this correction, and the best I could figure there was, let's see, it's been a week since I looked at this. Let's go back to Slack. What did I say in Slack? Yeah, I didn't. The IMU, finding where it was reading the IMU was, yeah, I guess I'm not talking about or showing exactly where did he read the IMU and how did it get into this statement. So I guess where I'm going to leave it at is I have, my hypothesis at the moment is when he's following the Stanley approach in this function, he's adjusting his not physical location, which is my approach at the moment, which I'm still not happy with. But instead of adjusting the physical location, he's adjusting the steer angle based on the IMU data. He's not actually using, I think he's just using, I always get the pitch and roll confused, whether it's pitch is left to right or roll is front to back or the opposite. But let's just see if I go back into VS Code, see if I can. Yeah, steer angle correction. It's not on the left side. I'm looking for where the this extract steer correction is on the left side of the equal sign, where it's actually being assigned. Here we go. Yeah, that's what I had up before. I had this worked out in my head before, but anyway.
But since you're at a point where you can search everything, try searching for roll and then try searching for tilt just to see what that pops up.
Yeah, this is the, I'm looking for this roll because in this statement, he has, this seems to be some factor that he has set, and this is the variable where he's actually storing role data from the IMU. So searching for this mf.ahrs, and as I was looking at it earlier, was like the thing to really dig in on. And that's where we, did you want me to look for, you said role, and what was the other word?
Tilt. Because the phrase people seem to use, they say GPS tilt compensation is what they call the call this whole thing, where they're trying to remap your GPS antenna to directly to where your point on the ground is, whether it's tilted or not. I just wonder, if that would give you into a comment or something that says here we're trying to remap our GPS or something. And I don't know that it's even in here. It's just something else I thought of you might be able to search for.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just looking through these items on the left here to see if anything. Well, while we're doing that, see what, remind me what we get when we say pitch. So just out of curiosity, heading, roll, pitch. I'm just poking around now. Wow, that's only used one place. That's a peculiar spelling. Yeah, that's a serious, he's reading something there. To integer, where's that? I wonder where that data is coming from. I wonder what that means. I don't, C# is not my deal.
What's the name of his stuff? Is it Brian Farmer T or
Yes.
I was gonna go look at his YouTube channel and then search that for say tilt compensation or
Here's,
Farmer Brian T. Okay, so I had him backwards.
this UDPcom designer.cs, that must be where they're actually doing the reading. based on the code received from ag.io.
Yeah, there's one video called Contour Guidance. And it's the video of him driving around in his field, and maybe that has something to do with um, it says contour guidance, comma, zoom/tilt. I'm thinking these videos are going to say, well, if you go to this screen with the menus, then you'll say, here's how you turn this on and off, and you might direct you to somewhere where he's actually talking about how it works. And the other thing, that if I just search for GPS tilt, another one pops up as a heading by GPS and IMU BNO 55. So whether or not he's going to mention in there whether he's compensating for his GPS or not, I don't know. Yeah, we just take some digging to figure all this stuff out.
I'm just putting a post in chat to save it for posterity.
So another thing I noticed, if you just go to a search engine and you type in GPS tilt compensation, what you end up with is all the surveyors talking about their surveyor polls. And when you move the thing back and forth, they're constantly talking about that stuff, which may or may not lead you down the right path if you try to dig into it. They're usually saying go to your menu and change this stuff. So it doesn't really, it doesn't really tell me what I was looking for if I try doing that. But if you got time, it gives you 5,000 entries. You can dig through a bunch of them and see if you can get something closer to what you want. But I still remember seeing a picture somewhere. They showed like a back of a tractor that showed the tractor was tilted on a hill. And then they showed here's the GPS antenna, and it drew a line straight down to the ground and said, well, then, but you really want to be over here. So that somewhere I saw a picture where they're talking about that. In fact, it might have been on the Ag Open GPS that he might have had a picture that was similar to that. And I don't know if that had anything to do with what we're looking for or not, but it's something I'd seen. Well, that's another trick. If you're um, using search engines, you could put in something like, say, tractor GPS tilt compensation, and then click on the thing that says images instead of all, and that way it'll if there is an image of somebody drew of a tractor tilted, that might get you there quicker. So sometimes it's easier to search by an image than an actual um, phrase and then try to dig it out of everything. There's something else I've learned over the years trying to track down obscure stuff and not knowing what it's called. Sometimes the pictures just pop up. It's obvious by looking at a picture if that's even close to what you want or not.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I just and I know that you may not be in a spot where you need to look at this, but if you spend any time on looking at Ag Open GPS and you find something I missed, I would definitely appreciate the input. Because, I mean, although you found a lot of tilt compensation in my rudimentary testing or searching, I've got Ag Open GPS is one of the few people that it seems like is actually showing what they did.
You go to the
Anyway.
big companies like Novatel and say, "Oh yeah, we have this," but then they won't tell you how it works or anything. They just say, "Hey, give us an extra few $1,000s and we'll turn that on for you." That's usually what it comes down to.
Definitely not a DIY budget operation. So anyway, that's where I'm at, is still on the quest to it's running a mission, trying to improve the accuracy of the mission by some sort of tilt compensation.
And I did find that PDF looks like it's going to be really useful. That when you posted on Slack, you said, here's the you were talking about the same stuff and you said, here's the PDF. In fact, can you pull up Slack again and just
Sure,
show that entry? So
on my way. Just a little slow. So this is, I found a couple. Looks like maybe I only posted this one. Or no. Do you want me to pull it up?
okay, just so people know what it looks like. But
Yeah, this was from CMU. And it seems to me there was another, the Stanley approach actually came out of
Stanford,
Stanford. Yeah.
I remember Ray always used to call it Stanley.
S-
The
Stanley.
Stanley steering method.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah, but he was
I had
of Indian descent, so he just mispronounced a lot of words.
I had forgotten that there was this competing deal with pure pursuit. I thought that was the gold standard.
But this paper that you posted here, I was looking through that, and he talks about these methods and compares everything back and forth. So it if I'd actually go through and look at those little diagrams and his equations, and maybe that would make more sense to me to do that.
Oh, just for clarity, yeah, there's two papers. This from Stanford, and then there's another link here that's referencing the Carnegie Mellon one where they're comparing the two. So
Yeah, it's this one, the one from Carnegie Mellon's one I was scanning through, and I didn't realize there was a second paper here. And I think it goes into more detail on probably goes into how their Stanley method works. That other one.
yeah, so this one is attached, and so you have to download it. And the CMU one is just a link
Okay.
that obviously downloads.
Okay. Well, it's a good thing we went and looked at this page then, because that wasn't obvious to me that
Yeah, it's not.
one's attached and one's just a link.
Not sure why I did that. Just why are the roads crooked in Tokyo to confuse the enemy? Sorry about that.
So yeah, if I get bored, I might dig through those and see if I can figure out, get a better understanding how any of this stuff works. Now, as far as like this tilt compensation, it occurs to me the guy right across the street has a yard where he's got a fairly steep hill right in front, and that should be easy enough. It's not really a tall hill, but it's maybe a foot or two high, but it's got a fairly good angle to it. I should go over and ask him if I can drive my robot around in his yard and try that.
Absolutely.
At least it would give me some numbers, whether or not I immediately try to correct for it, but that should give me something there.
I was going through my trying to organize my files. Obviously didn't do a good enough job because I can't find it right now, but I came across another. Oh yeah, it's my IMU my IMU bag, and there's more than one in there. I could do a little desk check of if I know my height off, say the desk, and I lean it over 15 degrees, what is it gonna, could practice doing the calculations for where's the 0 point.
Another place maybe to look is the that paper that came out years and years ago. I think it's called "Where Am I," and it was by I can't remember the person's name that did that, but it had lots of detail on lots of good stuff on everything. And I think here, let me just go see if I can search that up. Well, that didn't work. Where am I? Bring up lots of interesting links, but it's not what I'm looking for yet. But the person that wrote it is somebody, what's the guy's name from Carnegie Mellon? Red something. Anyway, it's from that generation. It was one of those, big, like big three or big four main guys in the thing wrote this.
I can't remember any particular names from CMU. I just remember the outfit, the institution.
The only reason I remember that because that paper I was looking at mentioned him in there, and that's why I was able to pull it up right now. So let's go to let's see, chat. If you put in this phrase, so it says, "Where am I? Robot localization." That brings up lots of other links that are probably closer to robotic stuff. So if anybody's bored, you can go dig through that. And if I think of what that is, I'll post that to Slack and we can talk about it next week. And it was basically, I think it was originally it was a book, and this is like like a trimmed down version of it or whatever was in there. But he talked about everything in there.
Hmm.
So
The last thing I'll mention is robot related. I listened in. This is the construct guys, the guys who do ROS training, and I got an email like everybody else about this particular open class, which is really like a 1 hour webinar where they talk about whatever. And in this particular one, they were talking about says AI. Effectively, it's the using Bayesian math to decide whether you're going to go, in this case, the robot was going to go towards one of three locations. It was interesting. I mean, kudos to those guys for having the platform and trying to do a little outreach by having at least a 1 hour seminar. But their goal is to get you interested and pull you into the whatever it is, $50 a month classroom setting that they have. But I thought it was interesting. So a little plug there for the construct.
So one other thing, I was just sitting here looking at the table and I saw here's a gear. This is like the gear that's on the back of this robot right here. So on the axle, there's a 3/4 inch axle, and I had a gear like this that had a 3/4 inch hole in it. And this one's see, it's kind of molded on there or something. It looks like that this part of it here looks like it's about 3/4 inch in diameter, and it's got a 1/4 inch hole in the middle. I was thinking, how could I machine that and cut that out to 3/4 inch hole? I finally decided if I just lay it flat on the drill press, like this, flat on the table, and take a step drill and bring down. If I get a step drill that has a 1/4 inch on the tip and then goes out to 3/4 inch, I think I can just drill that whole thing straight through there. And the 1/4 inch hole, I think will keep it aligned well enough because it's not a high speed thing. Yeah, I just got to get it so the hole is real close to 3/4 of an inch. Ideally, it's slightly under that I can wedge it onto the shaft like I did like I did on this one here. So I was to put it on my lawn tractor, I was going to get, take one of these and drill it out 3/4 inch and just kind of wiggle it onto the shaft. And then hopefully I won't, if I have to, I can put a spot of super glue on it to hold it, because there's really not a lot of force on anything there. It's just ideally, if it lines up, say on the shaft like this, I want it fairly close like that, so that thing doesn't wobble as it goes around. So that was laying here. And I think I've got 3 of these, so I could afford to destroy one. And if I make a total mess of it, then I'll just not do that again. And but if the first one does work, I'll try sacrificing the second one to see what that does.
Cool.
I look at other stuff on the table here. I don't know. I cleaned a lot of stuff off, so it's not in my way anymore. So I don't have a lot of inspiration in front of me right at the moment.
Inspiration. Yeah, I got a lot of inspiration around here too.
Yeah, I notice you got quite a good pile of inspiration there on your table behind you.
Oh, that's the inspiration that hasn't been put in a bin. That's what, like, I'm trying to clean out. Like, I buy this stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then I'm like, well, it's got an antenna on it,
It
and
might be that Bluetooth module.
it's exactly right. Yeah, you're better than Google, because I took a picture of it and used Google Lens to pull up. It's an HC05 Bluetooth module to be exact. So now I have a piece of paper with that written on it. So when I put it in my inspiration storage system, um,
Yeah, I just ran across a little white plastic box that had modules that looked kind of like that in there, and I'd written on the side Bluetooth question mark. So that's that's as sure I was about it. But typically, if you pull up the number on the board, does that have any numbers on that board?
no, it
Because some
has 2030 on the back of it, and level 3.3, which, I mean, obviously tells me it's not a 5-volt deal.
Yeah,
But no.
but sometimes I'll have a number like, it'll say like CMU-55 or something, which just seems to be a standard number that numbers that the Chinese use to mark these things. And then if you just go search for that on, say, Amazon or whatever, it'll pop up. But if you got, the board there in front of you, and you go to somewhere like Amazon or eBay and say Bluetooth module, let's see, change the view here. So if you hold up stuff so we could see it. Okay. But so if you know what that looks like, just say Bluetooth and just go down the list and find one that looks the same, because since it's blue, that's easier. Some of them are blue, some of them are red, some of them are green. So that's a quick way to find, get you close. And then if you can find one that looks exactly the same, you can probably tell what that is.
Yeah, so I'll just see if I can pull it up here. There is an app in Google. I'm just going to put it in chat. That see if you could click on that lens.google for the uninspired. So you take a picture with your phone and you can search on like what you're looking at, and it's turned out to be pretty darn good. I came up with this, immediately told me this was what it is, an HC05. And then some of the references will be Amazon where you can go buy it. So anyway, just a little tip on searching.
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, they go ask Chat GPT, and I've never tried that. So it could be that's another way to, maybe you can show it a picture and say, here, tell me what this is. And it's, it'll try something else to try to pull stuff up. And I don't know if that's something you have to load the app on your computer, or it's a website you go to, or what that is. But some of the guys on the homebrew robotics group, they say, oh, well, if you ask Chat GPT this, it comes back all these references. In fact, that guy's real serious about using that stuff. So I suppose like back in the old days, somebody says, oh, well, just Google it. And say, what do you mean? Oh, go to Google and type your thing and it'll find that stuff. And oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, I still remember the day when I first heard somebody say, Google it. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Anyway, think we can stop recording.
Okay.